The morning sun broke through the cracked windows of the old school building, casting long shadows across the dusty floor of the classroom. A girl sat alone in the last row, her hair tied in a loose ponytail, her clothes faded and patched in several places. Her name was Aisha. She never raised her head too high, never looked anyone directly in the eyes, and always walked quietly, hoping the world would forget she existed. But the world never did. In fact, the world around her seemed to remember her all too well, especially the group of bullies who thrived on making her life miserable. They weren't just ordinary bullies. They were cruel, entitled, and merciless. And today they had set their eyes on her once again. The classroom door slammed open with a loud bang, and in walked three figures who towered over the rest. Their leader, Samir, had a crooked grin plastered on his face, the kind that promised trouble. Behind him were two of his loyal followers, Shahbaz and Rohan, both eager to laugh at whatever cruelty their leader invented. Their footsteps echoed like thunder as they marched straight toward Ayesha's desk. She froze, clutching her worn-out notebook tightly against her chest, silently praying that maybe, just maybe, today they would ignore her. But fate was not on her side. Well, look who's trying to hide again, Samir sneered, slamming his palm on her desk so hard that the sound made everyone in the class flinch. The other students went silent, eyes darting between Ayesha and the bullies. They had seen this before. They knew it would end badly. Some looked away, unwilling to interfere, while others leaned forward, hungry for the drama. "What's the matter? Poor little puppy," Rowan added mockingly, bending down so his face was inches from hers. "Didn't you hear us calling? Or are you deaf as well as useless?" Ayesha's throat tightened, but she didn't reply. Speaking back would only make things worse. Silence had always been her shield, though it was a fragile one. Samir leaned closer, his voice dripping with venom. "You think staying quiet will save you? No, today we want a show. Get up, Ayesha. Stand right here in front of everyone." Her heart pounded as she stood slowly, trembling from head to toe. She hated the way they enjoyed this, the way they fed off her fear. "Now bark," Samir ordered, his smirk widening. The words hit her like a slap. Her lips parted slightly, but no sound came out. The classroom buzzed with whispers, some giggles, and then silence again as everyone waited to see what she would do. "Did you not hear me?" Samir snapped, grabbing her notebook and tossing it across the room. "I said bark like a dog. On your knees." Shahbaz and Rohan burst out laughing, their voices echoing through the room. "Yes, puppy! Show us how a street dog begs for food." Woof woof. The laughter spread. Some students chuckled nervously, others smirked, while a few hid their faces in shame at watching the cruelty unfold. But nobody moved to stop it, nobody dared. Ayesha's fists clenched at her sides. Her face burned with humiliation, but her eyes remained lowered. The pain inside her was deeper than anyone could see, but beneath that pain, something else was stirring. Something no one in that room could ever imagine. She dropped to her knees slowly, her movements heavy like chains were tied to her body. She opened her mouth, forcing out a faint sound, a pathetic imitation of a bark. The classroom erupted in cruel laughter. Tears pricked her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "Not here. Not in front of them." "Louder," Samir shouted. "I can't hear you! Bark like the filthy dog you are!" Her second bark came out stronger, filled with suppressed rage that nobody recognized. Samir smirked with satisfaction, spreading his arms proudly as though he had just staged the greatest comedy act. But behind her lowered lashes, Ayesha's eyes flickered for a split second. Eyes not of a victim, but of a predator waiting for the right moment. They didn't know. None of them knew. Behind her meek appearance, behind her quiet suffering, Ayesha carried a secret. A secret life no one could ever suspect. Every night after the world had gone quiet, she stepped into a different arena. A hidden, underground world where masks hid faces and strength was the only language spoken. There, she wasn't Ayesha, the poor girl, the bullied student, the invisible nobody. There, she was something else entirely. But that secret had to stay hidden, for now. As the bullies laughed and mocked her, as she was forced to crawl on all fours and bark louder for their amusement, Ayesha's mind burned with a silent vow. She would remember this. Every word, every laugh, every humiliation. She would carry it with her until the day came when the tables turned. And when that day came, these bullies would regret ever thinking she was weak. The class bell rang, breaking the cruel performance. The bullies laughed one last time, slapping each other's shoulders as they left the room. "Good job, puppy," Samir mocked. We'll play again tomorrow. Ayesha stayed kneeling for a moment, the classroom slowly emptying around her. When she finally stood, she walked slowly to retrieve her notebook, her hands shaking not from fear, but from the storm of fury inside her. She pressed the notebook to her chest and walked out of the classroom, her steps silent but her mind screaming. The day had been theirs, but the night would be hers. Later that evening, in a dimly lit basement beneath an abandoned warehouse on the edge of town, the air was thick with the smell of sweat, blood, and adrenaline. A crowd gathered in a circle, shouting, cheering, and stamping their feet against the concrete floor. In the center of the ring stood a girl wearing black gloves, her face hidden by a mask, her stance sharp and ready. It was Ayesha. The crowd roared as her opponent charged, a tall and muscular fighter who outweighed her by at least 30 pounds. But Ayesha's movements were lightning fast, her punches precise, her footwork flawless. Within minutes the man crashed to the floor, groaning in defeat. The referee raised her arm high, the crowd erupted in chants. They called her the Shadow, the undefeated underground boxing champion, the girl nobody could beat, and tomorrow she would walk into school again, quiet and meek, but inside she would carry this fire, this strength, this unshakable power. The bullies had no idea who they were playing with, no idea that the same girl they forced to bark like a dog was the same fighter who ruled the underground ring. And soon, very soon, they would find out.